and community service, etc. California Joint Apprenticeship Committee for Fire. And this is Lasana Pakeman, and she's going to talk to you a little bit about what it takes to get into the different career paths in firefighting, fire science, etc. I'm going to let you take it away.
All right. So thank you so much for that introduction. All right. So my name is Lasana Pakeman. I am the recruiter for the state of California for the California Firefighter Joint Apprenticeship Committee. And so what that means is, at least CALJAC, the acronym for our organization, what we do is we work with fire departments throughout the state of California to ensure that they have materials that they need to train, whether that's upgrades on equipment. We support in that way with fire engines, fire trucks, funding for those things, as well as resources like training modules for firefighters. A big part of the role once you become a firefighter is going to be training. You're always training for the job, you're always training and promoting, you're always testing. There's a lot of different components outside of just putting out fires. And so CALJAC is a labor management partnership. And so all of that may be a little confusing, but what I'm going to talk to you about today is one of the organizations that we have at CALJAC called FCTC, the Firefighter Candidate Testing Center. And so with that, that's kind of the vehicle or the means that we use to provide services to candidates. And so once you become a firefighter in California, you're known in the system as an apprentice. And so before you get hired with a department, there's a series of testing you'll have to go through. I'm going to talk to you about some of those services today, just in terms of what the testing is comprised of, what it looks like, and how to access support services regarding testing. So I'm just going to share my screen. I have a PowerPoint for you all. We're going to start out with this very first slide. And I'll make sure my contact information is here, but that'll be posted in the chat. I'll make sure to do that. All right, so first, so FCTC stands for the Firefighter Candidate Testing Center. And so with that, we offer exams. And so as you kind of become more familiar with the fire service, there's many different ways to become a firefighter. Typically, any department you apply to is going to have some type of a physical exam and a written exam. Those will be required for most fire departments. And so with that, with the physical exam, it's actually made up of 8 different events that you'll have to kind of get your way through. What she's doing right here in this top picture, she's doing the equipment carry. She's on the CPAT course. And so she's carrying equipment from one station to another. During the entire test, during the entire CPAT, you'll be wearing a 50-pound vest. And so that's really to replicate, the gear that firefighters wear while on the job. And so I can share a quick video after this presentation. It's not entirely quick, it's about 7 minutes or so, but I think it's an excellent overview. And in the video, they show all the equipment that a firefighter wears. They put it on a scale and it comes out to just over 70 pounds. So between the helmet, your tools, your gear, your boots, your turnouts, all of that stuff is pretty heavy. And so your physical fitness is going to be a huge part of you maintaining your job as a firefighter, you getting the job as a firefighter, and then maintaining your job throughout your career. So you definitely want to be physically fit. That's a huge part of the job. And so when it comes to the physical test, I mentioned there's 8 different events you'll have to make it through. It's a timed test. So you only have 10 minutes and 20 seconds to do it. We offer a lot of preparation for the exam. So there's a practice version of the test you can take. There's also an orientation, and the orientation has a hands-on component that allows you to come in, kind of hear a lecture about what the test is about, but then you get to go downstairs and you get to be on the CPAT course, try on the vest, try the various events, and kind of see what that looks like and feels like for yourself. And so I'd like to move right on to the written test. That's another component of the testing process. And so anytime you're applying to a fire department, I mentioned there's going to be a physical exam and a written exam. Each department is different though. So even though fire departments kind of fall under this umbrella term, the fire service, they're all different, and so for that reason, some of them offer different exams with different vendors. So you always want to be familiar with the department you're interested in working for, which exam they require. CPAT, the Candidate Physical Ability Test, is offered by us. That's the only one that you'll find in California. So you'll have to come to one of our facilities to take that exam. But when it comes to the written test, again, different departments use different exams. And so the written test is comprised of 100 questions. You have 2.5 hours to take the test. It's broken down into, there's reading comprehension by way of essays. You'll have to read through a series of essays and go back and answer questions about those later. There's a couple videos that you'll watch. You'll have to watch videos, live. You cannot take any notes while you're watching the videos. And then after the videos are done playing, you'll have to answer some questions about those. There's a math component. And there's also a mechanical reasoning component. And I would say mechanical reasoning is probably the one area that most candidates struggle with the most. And so just kind of getting into that, I'd actually like to show you a quick video, or not a video, but a flyer of what the mechanical reasoning props look like. Okay, so this is going to be, we had a firefighter out of LA design mechanical reasoning props. And so these were designed specifically to help students or to help candidates with the studying of mechanical reasoning. You're looking at the first one, it's gears. If you're looking at a series of gears and one is turning to the right, which way are the other ones automatically turning? And there's ways that you can learn how that's happening. You can count the clicks, the ticks within the gear, and there's a couple other ways to do it. So we teach the schematics of that, what that looks like, and how to, kind of study for that and learn what it is. Same thing with levers, ropes and pulleys, fluid dynamics, all kinds of things like that. These are all skills that as a firefighter, they don't always come naturally to you, but you are definitely going to have to learn these skills just to make yourself successful as a firefighter. And they'll be, part of the job daily. So that's one component of the written test, probably the most challenging part. And so we have incorporated that into a prep course. And so when it comes to the written exam, you'll be taking that. There's also a written test prep course, just because we want to make sure that you're well prepared with anything in relation to the exam. So you have the written test. You have a written test prep course, and at the written test prep course, they're going over how to read a map of the city. If someone puts a map of your whole city right in front of you, do you know the fastest way to get from point A to point B? And so that's going to be a huge necessary skill as you're driving the fire truck or the fire engine through the city to try and get to whatever building you're at. And so we go over math, we go over a lot of the things you're learning here in high school. Many of the applicants that we receive for the fire service are a little bit older, maybe changing careers or things like that. It's awesome that you guys are getting the information now in high school so that you can kind of prepare for that and move forward. And so I'm gonna go back and share my screen and go back to this slide. Can you guys see me as well, or just the PowerPoint? Mr. Soderback, can you?
Yeah, they should be able to see both that and you off to the side.
Okay, just checking. So all of this kind of culminates with, you have a physical test, you have a written test, and these are going to be minimum level requirements that most fire departments require. So when you're looking to become a firefighter, there's going to be an EMT certification for most departments in California. CALFire does not always require that. CALFire is one of the larger departments, one of the largest departments in California, with stations throughout the state. And so with most other fire departments, they are going to require that you have your EMT certification. And so what that is your emergency medical technician certification. And what that does is that certifies you as an EMT, it certifies you as a first responder. And so whenever you are driving, you kind of see an ambulance flying by, the person driving the truck is probably the EMT. The person in the back who you don't see is probably a paramedic. And so the EMT is assisting the paramedic. The EMT is driving, the ambulance to make it to the hospital. The paramedic is probably in the back administering medication or doing whatever they need to do to keep the patient alive. And so the paramedic has additional training further or beyond the EMT. So the EMT is about one college semester. You can find shorter courses. We strongly encourage you to take, the semester long course. Many community colleges offer the course. Some high schools offer the EMT course in preparation for the collegiate course. And so once you've passed your EMT class, then you'll sit for a national registry exam. And so that's what certifies you as an EMT. So when you're looking at most fire departments and what do fire departments want you to have? What are some of the minimum qualifications? I would say by and large, it'll be an EMT certification. It'll be that you've passed a physical test and that you've passed a written test. And those will be some of the minimum level qualifications. With some departments, they'll want you to have a Firefighter 1 Academy. And so you'll also take that at the college level. You get to your community college, you get to your college, and you can sign up for that. It's an intense program. And so what it's designed to do is give you an idea of what it's like to be a firefighter, so that by the time you become a firefighter, you're not seeing all this stuff and experiencing all the training for the first time. It's supposed to really prepare you and usually typically does an excellent job at preparing you just so you know what to expect and that kind of thing. Some of the time you'll see the EMT course embedded within that group of classes as you're in a Firefighter 1 program. So again, just things to keep in mind. Lastly, on this particular slide, I'm going to talk to you about the statewide eligibility list. And so what this is it's a hiring list. And so back in the day, if you were becoming a firefighter 5-10 years ago, you'd have to go individually to each fire department you were interested in working for. You'd have to go to that department, take their physical test, take their written test, and then hope that you score high enough on both to be placed on a hiring list. And a hiring list is just everyone that day or during that period of time, that period of testing that scored high enough for the department to contact for an interview. And so your sole purpose in doing that was to be placed on this hiring list. Nowadays, flash forward, to 2021, FCTC, the organization I work for, has a statewide eligibility list. And so how this works is you take one CPAT, the candidate physical ability test, and you can take one written test that are good for multiple departments throughout California. So you, in this modern day and age, don't have to go individually to each and every fire department to take their test, and each test is slightly different or anything like that. This kind of goes into more specifics on like document verification and things like that. We want to make sure that you're to be added to the statewide eligibility list. You do have to be 18 or older, so this won't be applicable until you're finished with high school or at least 18. You will have to have passed the written test, the FCTC written test. I mentioned that there's others out there. So you'll have to have passed the FCTC written test. You'll have to have passed the physical test. I mentioned that you have to be 18 or older. You do have to have a valid driver's license. It doesn't have to be from California, but it does have to be valid. Excuse me. And you also have to list your highest level of education. And so for most fire departments, the minimum level education that they will accept is a high school diploma or your GED. And so as you start to promote through the ranks, some of those positions will require a degree, so like a college degree. And so you just want to be mindful of that since you're learning this information so young and so early. So if you wanted to pursue college or anything like that, it's really an excellent time right after high school. All right, I'm just going to go to the next slide. So I mentioned testing. I didn't mention the cost of testing. There is a cost associated with the physical test. It's $150 to take the CPAT, the Candidate Physical Ability Test. And so there is a cost also associated with the practice version of the test. And so with the CPAT practice is $25 a piece. The written test is $50. And then the prep course for the written exam is $25. And so we have a grant that you can apply for. And so the grant really covers the cost of all of your testing. And so we just want to make sure that if there's anyone in California that wants to be a firefighter, that the cost of testing not be a barrier. We want to make sure that if you qualify, that you get all of those fees waived. We want to figure out, how we can support you. What are services that you need to be successful? And so that's why we have the grant here. The grant is actually provided by the California Fire Foundation, who we work in partnership with. And so it's just an excellent opportunity. And just in terms of qualifying for the grant, if you think based on your finances, you will, or your family's finances, that you will qualify for financial aid when you go to college, we use the same language as the FAFSA or as financial aid offices. And so very similar numbers. So if you're approved for financial aid, there's a very strong likelihood that you would also be approved for this grant. And you hear back very quickly, but it is an excellent opportunity to just kind of waive the cost of testing. And so this is kind of, lastly, just some overview type information. I won't go too far into the weeds, but at FCTC, we do have these wraparound services by way of the preparation courses that we offer, whether it's a CPAT practice or the written test prep course. We really, really believe in test preparation. Testing is going to be something that you'll be doing throughout your career as a firefighter. We want to get you some good study tips and study skills just to make sure that you kind of have a good solid foundation for that as you go into the career. When it comes to accessibility, I'm going to show you our website in just a moment. But we do have centers throughout the state of California. So we're headquartered out of Sacramento. We have a facility right up here in Sacramento. We have another in the Bay Area. In Livermore, we have another in Orange. We have another one in San Diego, and we're continuing to grow from there. So there's lots of different opportunities for you to take the test at any of our sites. CPAT, the physical test, is only offered at our sites. The written test is offered at our sites as well as additional sites. So I'm going to show you the website in just a moment, and you'll see that some of the facilities for the written exam will be at FCTC centers, some will be at other ones. And just a last couple of points before we move on to the website. One is beta testing. I can't really see everybody on here now, but if you're someone who's into gaming or video gaming, you're pretty familiar with beta testing and things like that. Beta testing for us is every year we develop a brand new test that goes into circulation so that candidates are not taking the same exact test every single time they test with us. And so part of the beta testing process is to get experts within the fields and have them evaluate the questions and kind of help us out with that. We have a whole advisory committee developed for that. But the other part of beta testing is to have candidates, students like you, actually take the test. And so when you do that, you're getting exposed to new information that'll be on the new exam, but you also earn yourself a free test just by participating in the process, because we're super thankful and it helps us out tremendously. And so whenever you go ahead and sign up for your FCTC profile, we do want to make sure that you, whenever you see emails about beta testing, join us, participate. It's super helpful to you because you do get the free exam, but it's also helpful to us just to kind of see where candidates are going to score, how they're going to do on the exam. And then lastly on this slide, I'm just going to go over social media. As you start on this journey of becoming a firefighter, there's a lot of different things that are going to happen. We strongly encourage you to get a mentor. Having someone that's accessible to you, that has been there and done that and can answer any questions you have, is going to be huge. We're all about creating platforms to where you can network with fire departments, with the recruiters, with the chiefs, with the captains, just so you can get your questions answered. We host firefighter career expos. We host a lot of different events. And so by you setting up a profile on our site, and you do have to be 18 to do that, excuse me, but once you do that, we send out emails and letting you know, hey, we're going to have a mentorship meet and greet, or we're hosting a career expo or a recruitment in the spotlight. These are all different events that'll be accessible to you once you have your profile. And so as you start to network, as you start to ask questions, everyone is going to advise you that your online presence needs to be really, really clean. And so I understand, I'm a millennial, I understand that Gen Z, millennials, this is how we communicate. We're online. This is how we meet people. This is how we keep in touch and things like that. But you really, really want to make sure and think of your online presence kind of like your online resume. And so it really speaks to who you are, how you are, comments that you make, things that you like, and just know that nothing is private. And so I've heard several different fire chiefs give the advice that your online presence, your social media presence needs to be squeaky clean or non-existent. And so if it is not squeaky clean, you need to delete it and don't even participate. Okay. There have been several people kind of eliminated from a process just because of things that they have posted online or things like that. So it's something you want to be super, super mindful of. And after you complete the testing process, what happens after that is you get invited in for interviews. And I didn't go into too much depth on that today, just because you guys are so early along in the process. But it is a very integral part of the process, and it's different than most interviews you'll go on. So there's a lot of preparation that goes into that. But then there's also a background that happens afterwards. And so that background check is extremely intense. And so when it comes to the oral interview, you'll come in, you'll meet with a panel. If you can impress them with your resume and how you present yourself, you'll make it to the second interview, which is where you sit down with the fire chief. And this is where, it's more conversational, and they really just want to get to know who you are. And if the fire chief likes you and you make it past that point, and there's a couple other steps involved, but once you make it past that part, you go into backgrounds. And so you have an investigator searching everything that you've listed. And it's very intense. They'll check your school, any jobs you've had, your neighbors, your friends, your exes. I mean, just it's very, very deep, and it delves very deep into your online presence as well. So it's just one of those things that we want candidates, especially when you're so young, to become aware of that, and just kind of staying out of trouble, staying out of things that will prevent you from being able to move forward with the fire service or other public service jobs. All right. Any questions so far?
I guess to try to sum this up a little bit,
Yep.
Is, it's kind of like in the military, you have to take the ASVAB to be able to get in. For college, we used to have SATs and things like that. So the exam and tests that you're taking with your group are really that preliminary step in getting into firefighting. Am I correct? Is that the easiest way to think about it? It's kind of like an entrance exam.
Yes. Yep. You could think of it like that, because it is for entry-level firefighters. So yes.
And does everybody have to take this test? Is this just a universal statewide one? So even if I'm going to an academy at a community college, they'll still be administering this test.
Yep. Well, not the college. The college won't. I'm going to show you just a quick hiring announcement. So this is our website. Go to the now hiring section. We'll just pick a department. We'll go to Sac City. We'll go to Janislaw. All right. And so if you're looking at the hiring announcement, this is what they're looking for: a firefighter paramedic. So this is a step above an EMT. This is a salary that you're going to make. They kind of go over any specifics. You need to be 21 years old to be hired. They're looking for experience, at least 6 months. These are the things, any licenses or certificates that they want you to have. Driver's license, firefighter 1. This is going to be offered at the community college. You have to have a paramedic license, and a couple other things. And so when it comes to your education, they want you to have your high school diploma, your GED, or whatever is equivalent to that. Say that you were homeschooled or something like that, that's fine, as long as it's equivalent. And if you have college, at least 30 semester credits from a regionally accredited university. And so it also, within the minimum qualifications, it says to be considered, candidates must meet the minimum qualifications to be active on FCTC's statewide eligibility list. And so what that means is you would have had to be on our statewide list. You have to have passed the written test and the physical test. You have to be 18 or older and some of the other things. But that's why the written test the testing is so important, is because even if you're looking at a department that does not require us specifically, if that makes sense, they're still going to require some version of a written test. And so if you're wondering which departments throughout California require FCTC, those can be found. So we're going to go up to find a job. We're going to go to hiring agreements. These are all the different fire departments throughout California that require us in their process. So the list is pretty extensive. There's over, yeah. So is that kind of clear? Does that make sense? So any department you're going for, any fire department you're looking at will require some version of a written test.
Right. So for example, for our students down here, we have a regional training center with Palomar College that has their own fire academy. A few of the students here have actually been out there with me. So in their pathway, they need to take this test, and then they need to also go to the academy as well before they can really get that first job. Can you give the students, because we have the limited time, can you give students maybe an overview of some of the different career paths in firefighting? Because it's not just one thing, it's a set of things, and there's different levels. Like, it's not just all municipal. There's also wildfire and hot shots and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so you could do wildland. CALFire is very big on wildland. Some of the departments listed in that now hiring section are wildland fire departments. You could do dispatch if you want to be the person that when someone calls 911, you're kind of fielding those calls. You could do that. And in each of these arenas, you can really rise and promote. There's a lot of room for growth. There's also fire prevention. So say that you don't want to be a firefighter specifically, you could be the person who goes out into the community. You still wear a uniform. And so for people that don't know, they probably won't be able to tell the difference between a fire prevention officer and a firefighter. But you could be the one going out into the community and teaching students and families and just organizations about fire safety, sleeping in your room with the door closed as opposed to the door open, and the benefits of that, and just various types of just educating the community on ways to prevent fires with your sockets, with all kinds of stuff. You can also be the person that comes in after the fire and assesses to see how the fire started. So there's a lot of different career paths where you're not necessarily the one running into the burning building. And then there's a lot of mentorship. There's a lot of different pathways to go about these things too.
Okay, we've got about 5 minutes left. So I would like to open up to questions. And this is both students and instructors. So you can either come off the mic or throw it down there in the chat.
I think there's one question in the chat from Jesse.
Yeah, Jesse says, how different did the training and actual workforce felt? So I think Jesse might be getting at how different was the training as to the actual experience in the job?
Training like on the front end of things, right? Is that?
Jesse, you want to go into more detail about that? And you can come off the mic too.
Well, I know we're limited on time. Jesse, if you want to chime in, go right. I think I saw your mic go unmuted. Do you want to go ahead?
I well, I guess in general, the trainings you were taught in general, like how different did what you were taught? How, sorry, like how different did all of your trainings felt when you had actually had to do the experience in the actual workforce?
Sure. So when it comes to training on the front end, when you're still in school, you're in the fire academy, everything is controlled. You're in a classroom setting, you're in a class with other people, you're going over drills. Some of those drills are physical to make sure that you're ready for the CPAT and make sure that you're physically fit. Some of those drills are going to be running up flights of stairs and things like that. Yes, it's physically fit, but it's also to replicate you having to go into a building as a firefighter and running up multiple flights of stairs. A lot of it's going to be, some of it will be didactic, some of it will be like classroom based, to where you're using manuals and you're studying things and you're studying for your EMT position or EMT certification. So there's a lot of different components on that end. When you do get the job as a firefighter, your training continues. And so it kind of builds upon everything that you've already learned. So it's still going to be physically fit. There's a gym, typically at most fire departments, they have a gym somewhere within the station, so that you can still work out, because it is a very physically demanding job. As well as you'll still be taking classes. You'll still have to learn, mechanical reasoning way further than what it is we're teaching. You're going to have to learn all the different tools and all of the different features of a truck and an engine. I'm not sure if you guys have ever seen this, but maybe at Palomar, this could be an opportunity. When they lift the engine truck back, there's a lot of different components there as far as how to maintain or how to control water pressure. There's a big toolbox in there. You have to know how to use all that stuff. And so as a firefighter, your training continues, but it's kind of building upon those things. So it's slightly different, similar, because you're still doing physical fitness, you're still doing testing, but you're also kind of learning more about your job. And then you get to apply it every time you go on a call. Yeah, so I know we're coming short on time. Are there any other questions?
We had one more in the chat here. This was from Sandy.
Okay.
What was the hardest part and the easiest part for you individually?
Sure. So I'm actually not a firefighter. And Sandy, I appreciate that question. I work with firefighters and I work with candidates throughout the state that want to become firefighters by providing support, by making connections, say, Sandy, between you and a women's commissioner. And so I would say the most challenging part for most candidates is the physical fitness piece. And so a lot of candidates work out and things like that. Maybe you do a lot of cardio, but you don't do a ton of endurance-based training. And so just an example of this is maybe you run, 2 to 5 miles every single day, but you're not really running with any additional weight. It's just you. And so I would say that that's a big part of why it can be so challenging. I also think that a couple other challenges, maybe not the most difficult, but would be just, exposing yourself to mechanical reasoning. I think a lot of students, especially nowadays, don't know how to use various tools, don't know the importance of that as it relates to the fire service. Many people don't know that when you become a firefighter, 90% of your job has nothing to do with fires, has nothing to do with training, but has to do with medical calls. Every time you see an ambulance going by, or every time, someone calls 911, a lot of times the fire department is getting there first. And so they're responding to these medical calls and things like that. So the importance of your EMT certification is huge. But just when it comes to resources, I'm aware of time. We do have a women's commission that supports women getting into the fire service. It's a male-dominated field. There's a lot more men than women. And so we understand that women may require different types of support, may have different questions that they won't want to ask in a room full of guys. And so for that reason, and Mr. Soderback, I'll share the resources with you and you can make sure you share them with the class. But we do have a women's commission that really helps out with that kind of stuff regarding physical fitness and kind of all the other components.
Well, thank you so much. I wish we had more time, but this is a large exposure event, and hopefully we'll have you back in the future as one of our fire or first responder days here at Vista High School. I want to thank all the instructors and students for being here. And thanks for all the questions, and thanks, Ms. Bakeman, for taking time with us today.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'll leave my contact, or I'll just send all my information to you, and that way you can.
Sounds perfect.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Hey, Mr. Soderback, real quick.
Yes.
My students, we're heading over to the other guest speaker as well. I just wanted to make sure they got that announcement out. And thank you for being here with our students.
Yes, my students as well, heading to the other guest speaker.
Okay, I'll see you all there. Bye-bye now.